Good evening and welcome to the RTM committee presentations on April 16th. Will you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda is, we're going to take number 4 on the agenda, which is the high school security projects. Actually, it's number 5, the security infrastructure projects. Good evening. I think your mic's not on. To turn it on, you have to hold the button for about 3 seconds, and then there should be a light.
It's on.
There you go.
Hi, Sal Morbido, Manager, Construction, Security and Safety for Fairfield Schools. The resolutions that are before you are for one of our security projects, which we're getting state reimbursement as a construction project. It's a standard resolution that had been passed previously when we did this particular security project at 13 other schools. Okay. The 3 resolutions have to be repassed because the original version of them didn't follow the new format that the state is asking for, and they were too old. And it's just a formality so that I can complete the application for a school construction project with the Office of School Construction Grants and Review. That's the whole explanation.
Are there any questions on the high school security projects? Representative Wackerman.
Hi, Karen Wackerman, District 7. So just so I understand, we've already approved this, but the structure of the resolutions or the content was not officially correct?
It's not correct per their most recent procedures.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions on just on the school security projects? Seeing none, we'll move to item number 3 on the agenda, the Sherman School Building Committee.
I'll slide over and let Mr. Cullen.
Okay, for the record, I'm Tom Cullen, Executive Director of Operations, and I'm pleased to be here tonight, and I thank you for hearing and considering Board of Ed Fairfield Public Schools capital request project for Sherman Elementary School. You should have received a pretty large packet from the town hall. In there is all the Malona McBroom reports for the enrollment studies we had done. It has Mill Hill Elementary School in there, which you won't be hearing tonight. Sherman Elementary School, and the backup for Sherman Elementary School because Sherman's location is in a FEMA regulated flood zone, so we have to stay within certain limits. This is considered phase 3. For those of you that don't know, phase 1 was done in 2009, 2010. That was the annex building that was put on that site to help the school district. Phase 2 was done in 2012, 2013. That was a renovation and an addition partial for the building. This is phase 3 to hopefully complete the work we wanted at that school. The regulation from FEMA says we have to be under a certain dollar amount per the value of the building and site, and you cannot request again another renovation addition until you wait at least 12 months. So we meet all those requirements. In the packet that we provided for you, I had a conversation with Jim Wendt, Planning and Zoning Director. He provided information to back up how we were proceeding. So that's our presentation on Sherman. I can take any questions you might have.
Questions on the Sherman School Building Committee? Representative Bateson?
3 seconds. Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Tom, quick question. You've been here a long time. This goes back to 2008 or whenever this process started. I guess what I'm looking for, maybe it's either you or the board, after we're done with this or we approve this phase 3, does this compare or satisfy the wants and needs of that facility as we set out on this journey 10 years ago? Or has there been stuff that it's just not in the game plan anymore?
No, it will. This third phase at its completion, if we meet the FEMA regulations and can stay under the 3.2 million and get all of the work proposed done, it will meet all the demands that we required and requested for the whole project.
So in the long-range facilities plan, let's say something in phase 3 blows their budget, is that something that the board would probably consider coming back with in capital non-recurring and not go down this route as a phase 4?
Depending on the size of it, a phase 4, I mean, we have a roof to do there at some point. That would be non-recurring.
What of that facility now, what parts of it are air conditioned? Not air exchange, air conditioned?
None.
Nothing?
No, mechanical means of fresh air was installed, but the air conditioning piece was rejected by the previous building committee.
The main office, I thought,
Yeah, well, main office, but
but I mean, is that not portable air conditioners and windows? That's actually,
conditioned.
okay, now this, I saw in here, I think we have $1 million. Is that going to do the whole building?
Yes.
Now, I think in phase 2, we did the air handling equipment. So basically, I imagine all we're doing is adding the refrigeration.
Sort of. I mean, we added mechanical means of fresh air, which is a new requirement with new buildings. You're required by ASHRAE to have 15 CFM per student per classroom. That's what our goal is, to try and get at all our elementary schools when we renovate them. Because right now, they were all designed in the 50s and 60s with exhaust only. So now the new code says we need to provide mechanical means of fresh air at all times, along with the exhaust. So our plan is, that was installed in phase 2. The air conditioning piece was tabled or rejected because of the cost. We really don't know what the scope of work will be just to add the air conditioning until they can look at the whole building and work with the existing mechanical means of fresh air system that's installed there now.
So when I'm looking at this budgeted number, $1 million for air, I guess what I just got from you, that's a really soft number?
So it's a good number, but we really won't know until an architect and engineer looks at the building and says the existing systems that were put in place for mechanical means of fresh air can just have air conditioning added to it. The way you approached it and asked me, you made it sound like it's going to be simple, right? Just add air conditioning. We don't know that at this point.
Another thing I saw in here, phase 3 in the backup, it says elimination of one relocatable classroom. I think we have one portable down there now.
Yes,
Now, does that mean we're losing that?
yes. That has to go away because the addition onto the gym to add a stage is going to be bumped out into that grass area where that portable sits.
Okay, what is that portable being used for now?
Right now, I think it's a music classroom.
Music storage or music room?
Music classroom.
And what's Roxby's plan to do without that room or whoever's in charge of the facility?
Well, the plan will be to get that classroom into the school building.
They're expanding an APR and a gym. I'm not seeing any classroom space being added in this plan, is there?
No, go ahead, you can answer, it's a dual use.
One of the things that we're doing over at Holland Hill is that the platform/stage that's being added onto the gymnasium is actually an extra classroom. It has a foldable partition that segregates it from the gymnasium so that the gym can be a gym. The platform can be a instrument room, another music room. That's the way they skinned the cat at Holland Hill. And we're envisioning something similar to that at Sherman, that the platform that would be added onto the gymnasium would be a multifunction space.
Now, do we have any space like that now, or is Holland Hill the experiment?
I think several of our elementary schools can do that.
Can do that, so that's how they satisfy their math space, their music space requirement in their ed spec?
Not so much satisfied their requirement, but they're designed so that they can be used for multiple uses.
Who is in charge of the portable? Once we approve this, is it, since it's in the removing the portable in the ed spec? Mr. Dwyer, I think it is, isn't it? It's,
Have to check to be sure.
yeah, is this the? No, sorry, it's in the long-range plan. I don't see it in the ed spec, so it's in the long-range plan. I guess I question the wisdom of getting rid of space. I understand the dual purpose of the APR, and I understand that, but, Sherman's tight as is. Whoever's in charge of this, when we approve this, I'd like to have them consider not getting rid of that portable, possibly relocating it. I don't want to see us lose any, possibly usable space. Because once that's gone, it just seems like it's going to exacerbate a problem that I already see, that's obvious down there. So I don't know who'd be in charge of that, whether it's the building committee or it's the BOE once this goes. Since it's a long-range plan, I guess maybe it's BOE.
I can tell you we wouldn't try and move it. It's of the age that contractors have told us once it reaches 20 years, it's not the kind of building you can easily pick up and move and reuse. And the price of the portable classrooms have gone up substantially to purchase new now.
Mr. Moderator, through you to, I see Dr. Jones. How are we doing down at Sherman for class size? Are we doing okay down there? I know we have the 24 classrooms. How's class size?
Dr. Jones, can you answer?
Sherman is running close to capacity, which means that generally their classes are at the higher end of our class size requirements.
And that's 21 at K-5?
No, it depends on which grade level. In early childhood, it caps at 23, and upper it's 25.
23 lower, 25 higher. And how's it been going down there with your space? I know the enrollment down there is constantly in flux. How are you guys doing with sections? Is that one of the schools that's always a problem come September?
It's interesting. The year before last, our kindergarten class was very large. This year, we actually had moved and mobilized a teacher from another building to be ready in September, and it didn't come in as large as we anticipated, but it did at another building. So each year, it just depends. You don't always know where the growth is going to be. We do have, I believe it's 5th grade next year, and I'm sorry I don't have that right in front of me, that has the possibility of going to 5 sections. It just depends on the grade level.
And given the facility you have now, has it been workable?
It has been workable, but I think that although we're not talking about Mill Hill tonight, that's one reason that Mill Hill construction is going to become incredibly important, that we get that building done, because we need to increase capacity to be able to have options in the future, because we can't just go and add classroom space there.
What does options mean?
Well, right now, the board has looked at several different scenarios, and in 2016, actually contracted with Malone and McBroom to look at, is there a scenario that would be workable, that would resolve racial imbalance at McKinley, and then also take the pressure off of those buildings where we are running at capacity. Right now, McKinley is running at capacity, we have Sherman at capacity, and actually Stratfield, because we are housing 2 pre-K programs there, is in the 90s now as well, % utilized.
Given all the other issues that are floating around the Sherman disappropriation, are you comfortable getting rid of that portable down there, or would you like to see it stay on the property?
I think it's been the plan of the district for it to go away. I understand the concern of not having that music room, but I find it a much greater concern to start keeping trailers, I call them trailers, sorry, portables, for 20 years, because you have to really monitor portables. They can become dangerous. I mean, there are, tragic situations across the country where somebody missed a part of the floor that was rotting, and children have fallen through the floor, or a teacher. So, I think you have to be cognizant that you stay within the safety requirements that are recommended, because they're recommended, live for a reason.
Off the top of my head, I know that there's 24 classrooms down there, and I think we utilize 22 of them for general education. What are the other 2 dedicated to?
Is it music?
Off the top of my head, but it'd be music or art
Or
or
computer.
computer room.
Yeah, I would have to look at the actual floor map, sorry.
And to, let's say, achieve that 504 desired model that has been the standard in the community, we would need 2 extra classrooms?
They're actually at 462 is what is
No, I'm
planned.
saying that's what the capacity is on the school now, but
Right.
let's say down the road, anyone wanted to shoot for 504, to satisfy that, you would need 2 more classrooms?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Iacono?
Thank you. Having, Pam Iacono, District 8, having served on that second phase, I'm excited to see this get moved forward finally. But I think Representative Bateson raised a really good point, and I know that the Republican caucus is in favor of doing all these renovations for Sherman, and that's not an issue. What I think the parent population ought to know down there is this does not solve their capacity issue, and there's a high likelihood that they're looking at redistricting. I just don't want them to, nobody wants to say that word, but I just want, if they're not aware, they need to understand that this is not going to fix their capacity, and they're still going to be facing redistricting. So I just want to put that out there, but I'm great this is moving forward. I'm very happy this is moving forward.
Representative Walk?
2, 3. Hello. Jay Walk, District 5. Just to reiterate to Representative Bateson what he brought up about the portables. I remember where my children went to school at Stratfield, we had portables. I know Mr. Cullen knows that. My concern with portables, and I think back then, is how far away from the school to get to the portables. And for me, it's a safety issue of I'd rather see the children in the school instead of having to leave the school to go to a portable. So that's been an issue. I think, I'm not sure there was another elementary school we had in town that had portables, Mr. Cullen, that besides, was it Osborne?
A lot of the schools had portables.
Had portables.
We had 61 portable classes when I came here in 2002.
So we're all concerned about safety for our children in our schools. Why would we want them to leave the school to go to the portables?
We don't.
It's just not, for me, it's not it's a safety issue, but thank you.
Representative Georgiadis?
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. I was a parent at Sherman, involved in the Phase 1, worked with John Convertito, helped to make that happen from the parent side. And one of my children had 5th grade in the current existing portable that Representative Bateson was discussing. It was in bad shape in 2009, and it is not attached. There's no cover. There's no access to toilet. It had been moved to Sherman from Mill Hill. It was old then. I can only imagine how old it is now, and I concur that while an additional classroom, quote unquote, is good, I think it's most certainly, it was past its life expectancy in 2009, so I can only imagine the kind of condition it's in now. So that's just some input. Thank you.
Further questions from members of the body? Representative Barretts?
Hello? Oh, wait, sorry about that. Steve Barretts, District 6. As somebody who works in a public school where we do use the stage of an all-purpose room, if that is designed well, that can be a very effective teaching situation. So I don't think you really need the portable as long as you design that addition off of the gym and design that well.
Further questions from members of the body? Questions on either of the two Sherman items, the authorization for the building committee or the bond. I don't know if you had any further presentation on the bond resolution itself. No. Any further questions on either of the two Sherman resolutions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we'll move to the amendments to the senior tax relief ordinance.
Hi, Jill Vergara, District 7. I'm chair of the Senior and Disabled Tax Relief Committee. I just wanted to give a brief recap for where we are. At the end of January, I was here asking for the committee's approval of this committee to form the committee. We had our first meeting in the beginning of February. We discussed several things. The primary issue was getting Ross Murray's suggested recommendations for revisions that he had submitted in August 2017 accomplished. That was our primary goal, and we wanted to move very fast on those revisions. We also discussed the ideas of broader revisions, and we all, I think, on the committee want to make broader revisions. We're just moving more quickly right now to get this done. We're in the middle of the application season. Applications began February 1st. They continue through May 15th. So we're trying to work on this for Ross Murray so that it can effectuate his suggestions and enable him to administer the program more easily. So I don't know if anybody has specific questions, but I'll go through the revisions one by one. They all are in section 95-8, which pertain to the conditions for eligibility. And they all really are just relate to the ease of administration. The first one is relates to the residency requirement, the one-year residency requirement. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions about this, that I could pause and see if you have any questions about the one-year residency requirement and the language changes.
Any questions on that change? Seeing none. Oh, Representative Sundman.
Eric Sunman, District 10. Excuse me. What is it now? What is the residency requirement now?
You know, I think that we'll send around the red line version because it will make it easier for everyone to review. But originally, it is a one-year residency requirement. We're basically changing it so that it's a little bit over a one-year residency requirement. The state language that enables us to have this program requires that it be 1 year. Ross Murray asked that we change it so that it's consistent with the state. When they start their clock, the state starts it at October 1st of the grand list year. that's what we're doing. Right now, it starts, let's see, the language is a period of 1 year immediately prior to his or her receipt of tax benefits under the article. So it's the receipt of benefits, which is a moving target. So people are receiving their benefits at different times of the year. If we change it to October 1st of the grand list year, that makes it a permanent, stable date, which makes it easier for Ross to administer. But it makes it a little bit over 1 year because, so someone applying right now, it would be someone applying this season, they would have had to have lived in Fairfield from October 1st, 2016.
Just a question on like Reading, Farmington, and Southbury with 3-year residency requirement. Well, do we know why that is?
I think that they just wanted stricter restrictions for who could participate in their programs.
So they're not required by the state to keep it at 1 year?
No, it can be 1 year or more. One town also does 5 years.
So do we feel okay about a 1 year residency requirement? Like, what is the rationale then for us to do 1 year?
I think since we see declining participation in our program, and one of the aims was to broaden the participation, we don't want anything more restrictive than what we have already. And I've gotten a report from Ross Murray for our recent applicants, and it seems like it's declining precipitously. So I think that I would take pause if we wanted to tighten the restrictions.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions before we move to the next change? Representative Farnan?
Brian Farnan, District 9.
Your mic's off, Brian.
Hello. All right, perfect. Brian Farnan, District 9. I have some concerns about the 1 year requirement versus the 3 years or 5 years, because in many ways, these ordinances are put into place so that, you know, long-term residents aren't being pushed out of town or the home that they lived in for many, many years as property taxes rise. Do we have any idea what the cost analysis, what the cost of the town would be between, say, 1 year versus 3 years versus 5 years?
We don't have that kind of analysis, but one thing to consider is that some of these towns requiring longer residency don't even have income restrictions. So this is their one restriction for participation. And that's one of the reasons why they're relying on residency rather than an income requirement.
And then one follow-up question. As enrollment in this program falls off, what is the major concern there? Is it because, I mean, at the end of the day, if people aren't accessing it, is there something, why is that a concern if people aren't accessing? Is there an issue of, you know, getting information out so people are aware of it, or?
I personally don't think so. We are trying to increase awareness, and we're looking into mailers and coordinating with Terry at the senior center to also, she's planning some mailings, and we're trying to do it together. But from my involvement on the tax relief committee, I mean, I participated for 7 months last year. It wasn't the full, I wasn't on for the full session. But from what I could hear, many seniors come out and talk, and they seem to be very informed about our programs. The senior center they really attempt to put the information out there. They have a lot of different ways of doing it. We have it on our website. We're thinking about enhancing the website. I've talked to Ross Murray about that too, but I personally don't think that that's the biggest issue for the participation. I think that we need to broaden our eligibility requirements, and that's one thing that we're hoping to look into more, but it's going to take a lot of analysis, like you're asking for, the economic analysis.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Representative Wackerman, then Representative Iacono.
Karen Wackerman, District 7. Am I right, though, Jill, that these changes are really more sort of technical changes that you're just doing for the tax collector, and that then you'll look into all these other things going forward?
Yes, I was concerned that it hadn't been addressed, in the last session. They seemed like very, not easy, but straightforward, I would say. And if our new assessor wants him, I thought it was important to be responsive to him. And some of his suggestions overlapped what some of our seniors were saying as well. The 183-day occupancy requirement is an example of that.
And then just to follow up, so any of us can go to the committee meetings going forward as you start to discuss these issues of 3 years or 1 year and participate in that development as well, right?
Yeah, and I welcome that because I think that the more voices in this discussion, the better.
Thank you.
Representative Iacono?
PMI Iacona District 8. I'm sorry, maybe I got mixed up. The requirement now is that you have to live, what is the year? How many years do you have to be living here to qualify for the tax?
There's a residency requirement and an occupancy requirement, which
Okay.
makes it a little confusing because
Right,
the
I
state doesn't
I
have
think it all got
that.
melded together when Representative Farden was speaking.
So residency is for 1 year. It's 1 year right now, and it's 1 year from the receipt of benefits. What we're changing it to is 1 year from October 1st of the grand list year. It
Okay.
increases, by several months, it increases the requirement.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was getting confused.
Okay,
between the two.
sorry about that.
Further, Representative Gerber?
Hello? Yeah, Bill Gerber, District 2. Thank you. Thank you. Special thanks to Peter Tallman. Maybe everyone here already knows a lot about the program, but I just want maybe level set a little bit. I mean, my moral, ethical issues aside, my assumption has always been that from an economic standpoint, we want seniors to stay. They don't cost as much to the town. So every time a senior leaves, and please correct me if I'm wrong, whether you have a different way of thinking about this or whether the committee feels differently, but when seniors leave, usually the turnover is to a young family with kids, and the kids cost, I don't know, Dr. Jones is gone, but we'll round it off to $17,000 per kid. So the economics, even of having someone come in who's been here a year, buys a house, is probably favorable versus the economics of having a young family move in, and that a healthy town has a good balance between seniors and families of different stages of life. So is that part of, like, in terms of goals of the committee, I assume part of the goal, it isn't just to be ethical, more, fair and
Right.
good citizens, but it's also to help the town maintain balance.
I can't speak for everyone on the committee, but for me, you hit the nail on the head. And I think that when we take a bigger bite out of these other separate revisions, that we're hopefully going to take a broader look at our tax ordinance as it is right now and make more substantive revisions, that hopefully we can try to have a program that really does incentivize seniors to stay, because I think that what you're saying is absolutely correct, that our town is the sort of ecosystem and you need a certain balance between seniors and families, and it's important to make sure your seniors stay, not only because they utilize town services less than families do, so it really eases town finances, but also because I think that it helps to maintain a diversity of housing stock as well, and I think that's an important goal too.
Representative Georgiadis?
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. I also served on this committee last year until it was reorged and Jill and I were removed. But so we had, I'd gone to a lot of the Fairfield Senior Advocate meetings along with Jill. And so my question to you is, there was interest in increased stratification for the income qualification because they felt like the gaps between the incomes were too great so that they would sort of get caught. Are we going to address that and increase the levels and the stratification?
I think that's something that we want to look into, and Jerry Stuhlman is
Right,
one
Jerry.
constituent of yours, I think,
Right.
who is very active, and he's continued to attend the meetings and been very helpful in terms of giving us some information on his ideas. And I think, you know, we've already spoken about it, and I've asked Ross Murray how many kind of brackets can we add to his program, and it's definitely one of the things that we'd like to consider.
Great, because I think that helps them stay in the program, and that's what we want. We don't want some aberration and have a qualified senior then fall out 1 year. So thank you
Right.
very much.
You're welcome.
So further questions on the one-year residency requirement before we move to the next change? Seeing none, we'll move to the next change, which I
Okay,
think is the
so the
occupancy
other-
requirement.
The next change is also in 95-8C. It's C3, and it's just changing the 265 occupancy requirement to 183 days, which is 6 months and a day, and makes it consistent with most federal, state, and almost every other town's ordinance.
Questions on the change in the occupancy requirement? Seeing none, we'll move to any other changes you want to discuss?
The last one was also in the eligibility requirements. It was 95-8C8, which is the delinquency requirement. Ross Murray had suggested either altering it or completely eliminating it, and we opted to eliminate it.
Questions on that change, the elimination of the delinquency requirement? Seeing none, any further comments or questions from members of the body on the changes? Representative McDermott?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mark McDermott, District 7, Vice Chair of this committee as well. Jill invited you to our meetings. We have a meeting tomorrow night at 6:30 in Sullivan Hall on the second floor conference room.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move now to the next item, which is the tax abatement ordinance. I'm going to present this one, so I'm going to turn the microphone over to the deputy moderator.
We'll wait while Phil gets set.
Phil Pierce, District 4. So this resolution does not relate to senior tax. This is a separate issue entirely. Ross Murray, our tax assessor, in reviewing exemption applications this year, this is a quadrennial year when tax-exempt entities need to file their requests for exemptions. Notice that Operation Hope has always been given an exemption for housing that it owns, and under the statute, that is a category of properties that is not exempt for that use. However, we can exempt it through the passage of an ordinance, which is how this came about. So our town attorney drafted these ordinances. LNA met a couple of times. Representatives Burcham and Bateson had some revisions to the ordinance, which have now been incorporated, and that's why we're bringing this to the RTM. You know, the goal is to get these passed, to get the ordinance passed by the May meeting, so that the tax bills that go out in June will not go out to Operation Hope, so that it will reflect the abatement. The ordinance does delegate the authority to approve specific abatements to the Board of Selectmen. So the Board of Selectmen the process would be that the Board of Selectmen would authorize the first selectman to enter into an abatement contract, and that's the language of the ordinance. So I'll take any questions on it. Or we can take questions and refer them to Ross Murray if appropriate.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you. So that's the meeting. So we can now bring up into committees.